Steph, I know you were rocking some very cool SOAR kit at Two Oceans recently, which I'm assuming now is your lucky race kit. But talk to me a little bit about why you chose to race in SOAR.
I just love the quality of SOAR kit. It's so light and breathable that you forget you're wearing it, which when you're racing is very important because it's one less distraction and you want to be feeling your best on race day. My favourite item though has to be the marathon shorts. There are so many places that you can store your gels and other items without it feeling bulky. They're just so comfortable to do those long runs in. There's a huge range of performance kit in really cool colours and designs that you can check out at soarrunning.com. For some spring training motivation, SOAR are rewarding you for hard-earned personal bests whilst wearing a SOAR race vest. Run a verified PB between the 1st of March and the 31st of May and get £50 SOAR credit. Head to the show notes for details.
Thank you to SOAR for sponsoring this episode.
He used to say to me, okay, you're not the best junior. I don't want you to be the best junior. I want you to have somewhere to go each year so that when you're going away to university, you're still not at max. You've still got somewhere else that you can add on with the training. And then I turned into the finishing straight in front of Buckingham Palace and I saw the clock and the clock said 2:18 and I thought, the world record is 2:18. And I sprinted like mad, but I didn't obviously get there. So I missed the world record by 9 seconds and I knew then that I could beat that world record. Perhaps now why with the shoes we are seeing extremely talented runners able to run extremely fast at the marathon, whereas perhaps before in the old shoes, they would have hit that physical barrier of just your body falling apart and not allowing that talent and that beautiful style and cadence to kind of keep going.
Welcome back to 5 Miles Easy. On the show today, we are going live to Wild Goat Festival, where Steph caught up with a very, very special guest, an absolute legend of the running world. She held the marathon world record for an incredible 16 years. Yes, it is the one and only Paula Radcliffe, and I am so excited to hear this interview. But Steph, first of all, tell us a little bit about Wild Goat Festival.
So this was Wild Goat Festival's first year, so that was really exciting to be a part of. It is both a running festival, mostly trail running, as well as gravel biking, which looked super fun. Want to give that a go one day. It also had music. It was very family friendly. It was just, there was something for everyone. So it was super fun. And the director of the festival is Steve Cram. So very inspiring event director, and that meant that lots of inspirational guests flocked to the festival as well, which was super cool. So you had people like Tomo and then of course Paula Radcliffe as well. It was really good fun. It was great to see friends, run with them, and also just hear from very inspirational guests.
Okay, and Paula, I want to know everything about meeting her because I am so jealous you were there. What an incredible experience. I think for a lot of runners, you know, Paula Radcliffe is such an icon and an inspiration. And certainly for me, throughout my running career, she's been a huge inspiration. So I would have absolutely loved to meet her. But I can't wait to hear about your experience. So tell me, how was it?
Firstly, Rose, you were very, very missed. I mean, when this opportunity came up and we knew you'd be on training camp, I just thought, oh no, this is so cool to do and it would be great for Rose to be there with me. But you had places to be, which is very understandable. But yeah, the first thing I would say with talking to Paula, and this goes for anyone, any runner really, and no matter what they've achieved, no matter what level they're at, what is so cool is you can relate to them. And I just think when you meet another runner, you have that instant connection because every runner can relate to another runner because it is just running. So I feel like if Paula Radcliffe's talking to someone that's just started out in running, you could have a really good conversation. But yeah, obviously it was so cool to chat to her. Again, like you said, I've looked up to her for years and years since I was young, and I really had to remind myself of that because I think with the journey we've been on with this podcast, we've been very lucky to meet some really cool people, and you can almost get used to, okay, like this is what we do now, we interview them. But I just had to really remind myself, like, this is Paula Radcliffe and you've admired her for years and this is so cool. And it was, and she's very down to earth and easy to chat to, but obviously just listening to her talking about her achievements was still like, wow, like what you've achieved is just crazy. You know, the obvious question asking her about her marathon world record of 2:15, you're just like, how did someone run that fast? Like, this woman right here ran 2:15. It's just crazy. But yeah, I think it's a super interesting interview. We talk about her career. We also talk about what it was like as a junior and the importance of having a good coaching setup when you're young and what you should really focus on in those early years, because the key to having a long and successful career is that you enjoy it. And I think that's really what it came back to for her, that and having a lot of perspective with things. But she did have her struggles as well, and she goes into that, which is always kind of reassuring because sometimes you see a lot of the highs, and I know a lot of her lows are actually quite publicized as well, but it's interesting to hear how she dealt with that mentally, because obviously she is human as much as she may appear superhuman too. So yeah, I think it was a really fun interview, and I hope that everyone enjoys listening to it.
That sounds incredible, and it is just so fascinating to hear all of that from her firsthand, because as you say, she's just a person, she's just a runner, and it is just running. But I think with Paula, she is just so much better than everyone else. You know, when she ran 2:15, to hold that record, a world record for 16 years, not in the super shoes, and it's almost just like an unrelatable time. Like, I feel like when I meet runners who, you know, I really look up to and they're a bit faster than me, say run like 2:21, 2:20, they're still kind of similar enough that I can get it. But with Paul, it's just, as you say, I cannot fathom how she does it. But it's amazing to, just hear from her about all of her experiences and how they are actually very similar to experiences to those that we have and those that other runners have, just on a different level at a different pace. So I am so excited to hear this interview. And on that note, shall we crack on?
Let's do it.
Well, this is very exciting that we get to record 5 Miles Easy live at Wild Goat Festival. Hope you're all enjoying yourselves. And it's even more exciting that we get to record this podcast with none other than Paula Radcliffe. Paula, thank you so much for joining us for 5 Miles Easy. The first question that we always ask our guests is, what is your why when it comes to running?
I have a very, big and evolving why, and certainly it has evolved from the beginning. The beginning was just, I had fun, I enjoyed it. Very much that's still why I do it. But in the beginning, I think I really wanted to see what I could be, how big I could be, how quick I could run. And that was kind of my why then, was just to see, I wanted to be able to finish my competitive career and say, okay, that was the best I could do. That was the best that I was capable of, and just see where that took me. And I think now it's very, very much evolved into my time in the day, which is kind of like my meditation time, my sort things out in my head time. I just feel better. I don't start my watch for a lot of my runs now, and if I do, it's only just to make sure that I'm back in time for whatever else I've got to do that day. But I certainly find that I'm probably a nicer person to be around, certainly more productive, feel better, sleep better, just feel a nicer way, feel like I'm living my life more if I can fit a run in at some point every couple of days at least.
Yeah, I can imagine all of those whys. It can be very relatable to everyone here. And I think being a nice person to be around is definitely a big one for me as well. And you said you started running just for pure enjoyment. And you started running when you were very young. And it wasn't long before you discovered you were pretty good at cross country and middle distance on the track. What did running mean to you back then? And what led it for you to want to pursue it as a career?
I think from the beginning, it was just, like I said, something that I enjoyed, something that, I enjoyed the fact that I was good at it as well. I had my best friend at school was a year older than me, and she was already in the local athletics club. So I was running a little bits with my dad, who was running marathons at the time. So basically we'd just go to the forest on a Sunday, give him a drink and a little mini Mars bar. I would probably join him for about 800 metres, 1,000 metres, and then get back in the car with my mum, go back home, and he would finish his long run. And we would then go and watch him at the marathon. And I just remember being captivated by the atmosphere on marathon day, the spirit the camaraderie, just how quick the people at the front were running when I was waiting for my dad to come by. I pestered and pestered. I had to be 9 to join the local athletics club. So when I was 9, I went and I signed up. It was a long time before I won a race. But I do vividly remember after I'd moved down to Bedford, I went and did my first national cross-country championships, and it was at Leicester, 1986, I think, either 5 or 6. And in the minor girls race, I finished 299th out of 605. And I can just remember my dad giving me the biggest hug at the end and saying, "You did so well. You came in the first half of the race." And then in the bus on the way back, my coach came up to my mum and said to my mum that I'm trying to get a team together that can win the minor girls national championships next year. Can Paula come to the track twice a week instead of once a week? And she just turned around and she said, "Why are you asking me? It's her." And just the fact that he thought I was good enough to make the scoring team and to be a part of that team to be winning was enough for me to ditch judo and go running twice a week. And so, long story short, the next year in the under-13 girls at Bexley, I came fourth and I was the second scorer for our team, and we won the team trophy. And that was the biggest illustration to me of setting a goal, working towards that goal as a team. A lot of fun, a lot of camaraderie along the way. And then actually, if you put your mind to it, you might not achieve it first time, but you will achieve those goals. So that was a really, really big lesson to me.
Yeah, I love that. And coming 299th, I think is great for everyone to hear here that, you don't have to be winning right from the start to make it when you're older,
No, I think the key thing is just that you have to enjoy what you're doing. You really have to have that love there, because you will get knocked back a few times. You will get the stuffing knocked out of you, and there will be times where you think, really, why am I doing this? And so if the why that you're doing it is because genuinely it makes you feel better and makes you feel happier, then you're far more likely to come through those pitfalls and those little tests of character that there will be along the way. And at the end of the day, it is just sport as well. It is fun. And you've got nothing to lose, really, other than a bit of pride.
Yeah, absolutely. And what did your coaching setup look like when you were younger? There are young people listening and parents as well. And the coaching aspect is super important as you're growing up. And how did that lead to your progress?
I think I was extremely lucky that we happened along on finding some really good coaches in my career. So my dad we moved from Cheshire down to Bedfordshire with my dad's job when I was 11. And my dad did a lot of research driving around the local clubs to find the best athletics club, because he knew that athletics was really important to me. And so he found my coaches, Alec and Rosemary Stanton, who I was with the whole way through my career. And Alec is coming 90 next year, and he is still very, very actively involved. We'll still chat about the way that my kids are racing and about what the girls at Bedford are still doing. And really, really instrumental to him was A, that everybody has fun, B, that everybody is individual, so no one training plan fits everybody. Everybody is unique and has their own strengths, and you always have to have somewhere to go. And I think that was really, really important. He used to say to me, "Okay, you're not the best junior. I don't want you to be the best junior." And that was when juniors were under 15 girls. "I don't want you to be that. I want you to have somewhere to go each year, so that when you're going away to university, you're still not at max. You've still got somewhere else that you can add on with the training." We probably used to get a few raised eyebrows, because we used to race literally a train station. I don't think anybody at Bedford County understood the concept of a tempo run until we were about 18, 19, because it was basically race to 5 miles as hard as we could. So it was not 5 miles easy. It was 5.5 miles actually, but we just used to sprint it and race it and try and beat the lights everywhere, and that was a big part of our training. But we weren't doing huge volumes. What we were doing was really getting quality there, and I think that did help to build up a philosophy in my training, which I carried on all the way through my senior career. And in some of those sessions is where I learned a lot of the really valuable coping techniques for the marathon. So when I talk about my counting, and I count in my head, and I count to 100, and then I start again. And basically 3 times, when I was running at my best, 3 times to 100 was a mile. So what I was doing was breaking down the mile within a marathon to literally what number comes next. So I wasn't losing focus or concentration, but I wasn't worrying about anything that I couldn't control. I was only just thinking one foot in front of the other, what number comes next. And that was helping me to really stay focused. And I developed that in a 5 by 6.5 minute session that I'd done since I was 14, 15, where the whistle was blown 1.5 minutes, 3 minutes and 5 minutes, and then 30 seconds to go. And I basically just used to try and guess in my head when that whistle was going to go. And because I'm not really very musical at all, I'm very driven by numbers and logical thinking. So it was easy for me to think a rhythm and to think counting and breathing, and then to be able to work it out from there. So those techniques, I think, were really important. And learning to run instinctively and tune into your body is another one that we did. So we did a lot of sessions in the park on trails like this that were not particularly well measured out, but you had to learn to judge and to know your body rather than being governed by the watch. And a lot of that technology also wasn't around when I was growing up. So that did teach me to be a lot more in tune with my body. And I think that is another thing that is very, very key when it comes to trail running and when it comes to marathon running.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can learn when you're young that you bring through your whole career. I think that's so interesting. So your career was very successful over cross country and track for a number of years, having won the World Cross Country, was it 3 times, the European Championships over 10,000 meters, and the silver in the World Champs over 10,000 meters as well. What did you pin down to your success? If we go back to your whys, was it the pure love for running, or was it wanting to get the most out of yourself, wanting to be the fastest, wanting to beat everyone?
I think it was wanting to be the best that I could be, and that was more what was driving me. And I think also spending a lot of time preparing for those championship races, growing up and seeing other people racing those championships before and kind of trying to learn little bits from them and from the way that they would race. And so I remember watching Liz McColgan, I remember watching Steve race a lot, and kind of just trying to absorb little bits about the way that they had raced. Then also I think one thing my coach was very, very good, and he used to say to me, I can give you so much advice and tell you lots of ways that you could run the race and that you're capable of doing, but at the end of the day, you're the one that's out there racing, so you have to know your body and what it's capable of on the day, and you have to trust that and be able to go with that. And you talked about the World Cross Country, and one of them was a junior one, and that is the one in 1992, which was very, very key, I think, for my career and for my self-confidence. So it came in my final year at university. I was doing my A-levels. I was kind of going away to university, and we went out to Boston. The race was in Boston, and the junior girls did not fit on the bus to go and look at the course on the Thursday. The race was on the Saturday. So on the Thursday, they said, okay, girls, you can't go. You can go tomorrow morning. On Thursday night, it snowed. So we were the only people on the team that saw the course actually as we were going to race on it. And I love running in the snow. Absolutely have adored it. Ever since I was a little kid, I loved to be first out there making footprints in the snow. And so it just felt like it was a sign to me. I was really nervous, but I loved the course. I ran really well on it, and I managed to win that. And I think that gave me a huge amount of confidence. Okay, if I'm going away to university, 4-year course, if I work really hard, I'm going to see if I can be a professional athlete by the time I come out of university, so I can just focus on my running. And I was able to do that. And I think if I hadn't have had that victory there, I wouldn't have had that belief that I could go on and do that. And the other one was the World Cross Country 9 years later. So that day, 92, I set myself a goal to try and win the senior championships as well. And no one had done it at that point. And it took me 9 years until 2001 to be able to do it. And I did it in a kind of sprint finish, which I was not known for at all. But it was an extremely, extremely muddy course. And I had led, I think, for a lot of the race, and was shadowed by an Ethiopian athlete called Geta Wami, who had raced a lot, and she always outsprinted me at the end. But what she didn't calculate with that day was we were finishing still knee-deep in mud and into the teeth of the wind. So the minute that she came out from behind me, she realised how strong the wind was. And then I knew that I could just get her back. And it was one of those days, I think Steve talked about on stage yesterday, where you just have this belief that it's going to go your way. And so even though probably 99 times before that she'd sat behind me, come back past me and just gone away from me, this one time I thought, no, you're not going away from me this time. I'm going to be able to get you back. And even though I had that belief that day, I was still in total shock. And one of my favourite photos is just me crossing the line, just my mouth wide open, just in total shock that I'd finally managed to win it.
It just goes to show how much of it's psychological as well, that inner belief, just you knew you could win it that day, and perhaps if you didn't have that thought, then you may have let the others beat you. So if that was in 2001 and you were running so well over the cross country then, it wasn't it was only 2002 that you then moved up to the marathon. So what made you decide that was the right time? What intrigued you about the distance?
I think the marathon has always fascinated me, but one of my key beliefs, and my coach as well, about the marathon is that it's an amazing event, and it's a tough event, and I think you have to respect the marathon but not be afraid of it. And what he always used to say was like, you are going to be very good at the marathon. All the physiologists were telling me, okay, the marathon is going to be the event for you, but he said you have to want to do it, so you have to wait until you're psychologically really, really excited about doing the marathon. And that's why I think 2002 was perfect for me, because I had run in Sydney, and I'd run in the 10,000 metres in Sydney, and I'd run, I think, 23 and a half, maybe even 24 laps at the front, and then ended up fourth, and did come away from that thinking, I'm not sure I'm ever going to do this over the 10,000 metres. I think I'd better move to the marathon. And so then started to make that plan to move up. But because I had that goal in my head of I want to run as fast as I'm capable of doing, I would love to win the World Cross Country before I move up to the marathon, because everything that everyone had told me was that you run slower after you move to the marathon. Didn't actually work that way, and I ran faster afterwards, but I didn't know that. So I wanted to try and run as quickly as I thought I could over 10,000 metres, and I really wanted to win that World Cross Country. So I think ticking that off in 2001 was huge for me. So, and then in 2001 on the track, over 10,000 metres, again, I finished fourth. And that time was literally by the thickness of my t-shirt. And for 10 seconds, they put on the scoreboard that I had finished third, and I thought I got a medal. And then I didn't have a medal. So then I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with that bit. I'm going to the marathon.
That's so brutal.
So then I went into the marathon in 2002 and just really went into it excited, wanting to do it. Was a little bit phased out by all the people who kept coming up to me beforehand telling me they put money on me in the toilets before we go out for the start. And I don't want to know that, because I wanted to go in and just enjoy that, but I really did. And I think that 2002 marathon was complete joy for me from start to finish. I mean, of course there were tough spots within it, but I just finished thinking I absolutely love this event. And I know it's hard, and I know it's tough, and the training's tough, but that actual race day is like the party bit, and the atmosphere on that course was electric. And I just knew I'd found my event, and had found the event, I guess, that I had the most options in terms of being able to race it as well.
Yeah, that's such a nice thing to just know what you love and do what you enjoy.
It's time to thank our sponsor for this episode, Velo Forte.
Now, as our listeners will know by now, we are both big fans of using the Velo Forte products in our training. And I have to say, Steph, I had a really hard session today, and all I could think about in those last couple of reps was having a malto shake at the end. The cold cinnamon and vanilla shake at the end of a hard session just hits differently.
Oh, it tastes so good, doesn't it? I've been absolutely loving the energy chews. They're a great alternative to gels, and I've been using them on those longer runs, especially in my training for Two Oceans. They came in very handy, and they're so delicious. I love the apple and cinnamon flavour.
And the best bit is, because Velo Forte uses only real food ingredients and nothing artificial, you can trust what you're putting in your body, and it digests so much better to synthetic alternatives.
And you can understand every ingredient on the back, which is not always the case with these types of products.
Thanks to Velo Forte for supporting this podcast. And if you would like 30% off the Velo Forte products, head to veloforte.com and use the code 5miles at checkout.
What is so crazy to me is it was only the year later that I'm sure everyone knows you broke the world record, the women's marathon world record, which stood for 16 years, 2 hours, 15:25, which still blows my mind. Did you know you were capable of a time like that going into it?
So in 2002, I had no idea really of what time I was capable of. I knew I was in good shape, and we trained really well. And then I picked up a bit of a knee injury about 4 or 5 weeks out. So I went to see my physio in Limerick, and he basically said, look, go and run the World Cross Country, which was 3 weeks before, because I don't know if you're going to be able to run the marathon. I don't know if I can get this knee right or not. So I ran that one, managed to win it, and it was really sore afterwards. And then he beat me up because it was basically just tightness at the back of my knee, and I can remember being in tears all night, and then 2 days later I could run again and it was fine. And I think I stood on the start line just so happy that I was actually able to take that opportunity after all the training and get out there and race. We had one race plan, which was just to have fun, enjoy it, try not to go too fast in the first half, and actually the race plan was within the first half, just don't do anything silly, just run with the pack, and then second half of the second half, so the last quarter of the race, you can really kind of pick it up a little bit. So I went through Cutty-Sark at 7 miles, and the atmosphere was amazing. And I came out the other side and got a bit of a gap. I wasn't supposed to have a gap, but one of the things my dad had told me since I was about 9 was, if you've got a gap, don't look behind and just keep going. So I thought, right, okay, I've done it now, so I might as well just keep going. I think I went through halfway in maybe around just under 73 minutes. So again, I was thinking, okay, this is all right. It was going to be a PB no matter what anyway. And then I started to have fun on the second half, and I did start to throw in a couple of silly quick miles. And I remember one of them just thinking, I can imagine Brendan and Steve in the commentary box are going to be slagging me off here, saying, what does she think she's doing?
When you say silly quick miles, can you please say what times these miles were?
I think then I might have done a couple of 5-minute 5:10s, somewhere around that range. I know in 2003 I did do some quicker ones then, but I think it was kind of born out of that. So I certainly was getting quicker because I ended up running 2:18:56. So I must have ran my second half very quickly. And I had no idea, because it was my first marathon and split times meant nothing to me. We picked out a red telephone box. There's a mile to go in the marathon, and I picked it up a bit from there, and then I turned into the finishing straight in front of Buckingham Palace, and I saw the clock, and the clock said 2:18, and I thought, the world record is 2:18. And I sprinted like mad, but I didn't obviously get there. So I missed the world record by 9 seconds, and I knew then that I could beat that world record, because I knew that I hadn't raced the first half, really. So I said to my husband about a couple of strides after crossing the finish line, okay, come on, I'm going to go somewhere now in the autumn, because I know I can beat that world record. And we did that in Chicago. And then the next big goal was to bring it back to London in 2003. So long story short, but to answer the question, in 2003, I definitely knew I was in better shape than I had been in 2002. And I knew that I was committed to racing it to be able to try and beat that record. So I basically went in with one goal, and that was to run every mile, if I could, quicker than the average mile pace from Chicago. So I'd worked out that in my head. So all I was doing was ticking off each mile and trying to make sure that that was faster, or I had enough of those quicker than 5:13 to have banked that record. So again, I had no idea really what time it was going to be in the finishing straight, but I knew it was quicker than 2:17:18, which was the record in Chicago.
Oh, I didn't know you didn't know what time it was going to be as you got into the finishing straight. So when you looked at that clock, what did you think?
Well, I had a bit of an idea, because Peter Elliott, who was 800 metre, 1500 metre runner, was actually on the BBC camera bike that day. And coming along the embankment, so it must have been about 2k to go, he dropped back and he said, Gary says if you pick it up, you can run under 2:16. Gary's my husband. And in my head, I'm thinking, I'm actually going as fast as I can here, so it's going to be what it'll be. And there's a polite answer for Gary, and there's not so polite answer. But I did just then realise that, okay, I'd been on for that time, because it was one of the things we talked about in the tempo run. So we'd done a lot of 10-mile tempo runs over the same course that I'd used the year before, and that was getting quicker. So he had said to me a couple of times, never mind beating the record, I think you can break 2:16. So that was why he'd sent Peter back, to give me that confidence that I was that close to it, because I didn't actually know. I mean, I'd seen the mile splits tick by. I think that year, either that year or 2002, I didn't actually have the cumulative time on the truck in front. So I only had each mile split flashing up, which was probably quite good, because I didn't need to worry about that. But when you go through the mile markers, you see the clock by the side anyway. But I'm not sure anybody's brain functions well enough to work out an actual finishing time unless your watch is doing it for you, and mine wasn't. So yeah, when I turned into the straight, I thought, okay, if I sprint now, I'm sure that even if I sprint slowly, I can still break that 2:16 mark.
Amazing. And clearly confidence was a big thing for you there. But what do you see as your strengths for your overall performance, and what set you apart from everyone else? Did you have non-negotiables when it came to training, recovery, nutrition, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a bit of a geeky kind of like, if I set myself to do something, I have to do it as well as I can. It's not just in sport. And I think that definitely translates well to the marathon. I think it probably can be quite annoying to live with as well. If I start something, I have to finish it, and it really annoys people. I think I am quite single-minded when I'm doing something, and I think that I enjoy doing that. So I actually do quite enjoy that task of, people used to say, is it a real sacrifice, a real hardship to go away and to do the hard training camps? But I actually quite like that little bit of a battle. I think that's maybe why I was drawn to the marathon, because it is a bit like a kind of mental game as well. It's like, how far can I push myself? How hard can I push myself? Can I get this perfectly right, where I can like ride that line between pushing it too hard and not being able to finish, and finishing with something left in the tank when you could have left it out there on the course. So I used to really, really enjoy that battle, and I think that certainly helped. And again, just I think enjoying what you're doing is really, really important, and not minding working hard, because there is an enjoyment in kind of finishing something and thinking, right, that was absolutely everything that I could give that. And I think you sleep well that night as well.
Yeah, I love that. And then I'm sure you've been asked this before, but obviously you ran this back in 2003. If you had to repeat that, but you were able to wear today's technology of the super shoe, what time do you reckon you could have run?
You know, if I've been asked that question a lot, but I've thought about it a lot as well. And I actually think now, much as I am extremely grateful to have the shoes now and to have the opportunity to run in them, and I think it's certainly prolonging my running now and would have meant that I had a longer career. And yes, I would have run faster in the shoes. How much I would have run is kind of that arbitrary question. I have no idea. But I'm actually quite glad I was when I was, because you talked about strengths, and I think one of my biggest strengths was that my body was just natural. My body and my mind were naturally very, very good at holding it all together when everything was hurting and falling apart. And you get to that 30k, 35k, and it just is about how bloody minded you are and how stubborn you are and how much you can keep your body going through that pain. And I think that facet of the marathon has changed a little bit. And that's perhaps now why, with the shoes, we are seeing extremely talented runners like Tigista Sefer, like Stefan Hassan, able to run extremely fast at the marathon, whereas perhaps before in the old shoes, they would have hit that physical barrier of just your body falling apart and not allowing that talent and that beautiful style and cadence to kind of keep going through it. So yes, I might have run faster, but a lot of people would have run faster as well. So I'm kind of all right that I had my time when I did.
I guess slightly related to this, British women's marathon running has some real depth at the moment and feels like it's taken a bit of a step forward. Why do you think that is? And what can these girls do next to, raise that bar even more? Because your time of 2:15 is still, 7 minutes faster than the next fastest British women. So what can they do to push that barrier?
I think they're already doing it, and they're already on that pathway. And I think it's staying healthy, it's staying consistent in the training. Sometimes it's finding the right race as well. And I think it is having the people around you to push you as well. And I think that's what's so great, not just about women's marathon running, but about British endurance running at the minute. I mean, look at the men's 1500 and what you kind of have to be thinking of doing, women's 800 meters, to be able to be even thinking of getting in the final at the trials, let alone trying to make teams. So I think that certain belief that, well, if they're all doing it, then there's no reason that I can't. I think that's what's really, really helping. And I think the fact that we have a great grassroots community feeding into that, and that needs to continue, that we've got an Olympics in Paris, we're not too far off, championships in Europe. I think it needs to be something you can actually go and see and touch and feel, and get more people going to those championships, seeing those races firsthand, feeling that energy. Because if I think back to those moments, like when I stood beside the road in 1985 and saw Ingrid Christensen setting a women's world record in London, those are the moments that really inspire you and make you think, okay, that is something that I can dream about and I can keep working towards every day. And I think that's what we need to keep doing for future generations, and that's what the women are doing now, and making it more and more reachable for all the other youngsters coming through as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's like when you see someone achieve something, then just thinking, why can't I do that as well? We're all kind of got an equal opportunity here to push our boundaries. So we're all capable of achieving amazing things that we don't know are possible. So you performed at a very high level for a number of years, and with that must have come a lot of pressure, and your career was very much in the public eye as well. You spoke about your mindset being very strong, and we talk about psychology a lot on the podcast, but how did you train your mind? Is there anything that you did to make it strong?
That's a really good question. I think circumstances and life help to strengthen your mind. I certainly think running is a really great tool for mental resilience and mental strength. I think I was really, really fortunate, and some great role models around me, just little nuggets that they passed on to me growing up that I probably wasn't even really aware of. And my dad, there was never anything that my brother could do that I couldn't do. And he always used to say, if you want to do something, you just got to keep trying. I can clearly remember my grandma telling me, well, if If you don't achieve something the first time, you just keep trying a different way and keep trying again, and you just keep persevering, and eventually you will get there. And the other thing that she used to say was, every once in a while, just take a step out of your life and look back in from the outside and make sure that you're happy and proud of the person that you are. Because if you're not, you're the only person that can actually do anything about that. So you have to change that. And so I think, having those solid people around you are really, really strong. And I talked in the tent about an analogy that I came across in a novel. So when I was nervous before races, to control the nerves, I used to read just to take my mind off things. And I remember reading this analogy in a James Patterson novel, and it was really, really strong for me. And it was basically that we've got 5 balls that we juggle in life, and they're health, family, friends, integrity, and career. And there's one key difference. So the first 4 are all made of glass, and the career one's made of rubber. So you can take some risks with that one, and you can throw it higher and try and get it as high as you like, because if you drop it, it's going to bounce, and it'll take you time to build it back up again. But if you drop one of the others, you're in a lot of trouble. So you really have to look after those. So you have to look after your health, because our bodies can do amazing things, but only if we look after them. And our family and friends are our support network. They are our team. So if we're not there for them and they're not there for us in those tough times, then we're in trouble. And our integrity is what we believe in and what keeps us doing what we're doing. So if you stand up for what you believe in and you're true to yourself, then I think that makes you a stronger person, whatever you're doing in life. But certainly out there racing, for me, I think that really helped. And then I think different circumstances in life just help you realize things and put things into perspective. And again, it goes back to that team around you, helping to reinforce that what is really important, because at the end of the day, it's not life and death, it's just sport. So when it goes wrong, we are only just dropping that career ball. We're not dropping any of the others. So it's not the end of the day, at the end of the world. So at the end of the day, just being able to put it in perspective, I think really, really helps. And I think before the Athens Olympic Games, I talked a lot about the fact, okay, I'm going to do my things my way, and it doesn't really bother me what people say, but it did really. And then I think there was a key moment after that where I'd read something in one of the papers, and I was lucky then that there were only papers and not social media and stuff, that was really, really not true and really hurt me. And I went for a run, and partway through the run, I had to sit on a tree because I was crying too much and I was too upset. And I just thought, this is stupid, because this is what I enjoy doing and this is what I want to be doing. And I'm allowing what somebody who doesn't know me and has got it completely wrong, has written down, to stop my enjoyment of what I'm doing, and I'm not going to do that anymore. And I think that was the day where I genuinely did think, okay, and it still hurt me if people said something that wasn't true and wasn't nice, but I could genuinely leave it and just say, it's actually not important, it doesn't affect who I am. What the people that are really important to me think about me, that's what counts.
Yeah, I think that's so important for people to hear. And just the word perspective, I hear it so much now, and it's true, because everyone can apply it. You know, running can sometimes seem like the most important thing in the world, and no matter what your level, you think, oh, my performance just means everything, but actually, you know, just reminding yourself of what's more important is so key.
And that was one of the key things. I remember when Sifan Hassan fell on the track in the championships, and she did just jump up and say, well, there's just another race. It's just one race, and it was one that was really important to me, but there will be other races. And I think, just trying to remember that certainly helps.
Absolutely. And what about when it came to injuries and setbacks? Because that's just a normal part of performing at such a high level. But how did you deal with them and come back so strongly? And did you ever feel like you wanted to quit?
I think there would be a lot of times when I said, right, I'm not doing this anymore now, that's it now. And then a couple of days later, I'm going, no, I'm not done yet. And I think, again, it goes back to enjoying what you do. And the fact that I did really enjoy doing what I was doing. So that's why I didn't want it to be taken away from me. And I'm not very good at taking no for an answer either. And I do remember, so 94, I had a really bad foot injury, and it was a stress fracture in my navicular, but they hadn't found that at the time. And I can remember going to see a physio, and the physio saying to me, you know what, I'm not sure you're ever going to be able to get back to running. And I can remember going back to my mum and dad's house and crying and telling my dad, look, they said, I can't run anymore. And he said, well, that's fine. There's millions of people in the world go through life and they do amazing things and they don't run. And I just remember screaming over, I'm not millions of people and I want to be able to run. And then I went to the cinema with him that night to watch Schindler's List. And it is one of those moments that really sticks in my mind, because I think I was sitting in the cinema feeling sorry for myself. And then I just thought, oh my God, you are so out of perspective here. And there are far worse things that could be happening. And this is just a little bit of an injury. So then I think just getting that perspective and then just thinking, all right, I'm just going to try different things. And I was lucky enough to find a doctor who was able to get me able to back running again on my foot, and then different podiatrists and physios that helped me to stay healthy through the rest of my career. And I just didn't take no for an answer. And so I think that is not always going to be the case. You're not always, of course, going to be able to get through things like that. But I think there is always a way to find something that you can continue doing which will make you feel just as happy and just as fulfilled. And that's just important, just to keep trying different ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think with a lot of these things you're saying, is just have a great support system around you. That's kind of
and
key.
Transfer that focus as well. So a lot of times with injuries, you can't go out and do your set training plan. But if you were going to be training for an hour in one day, and instead the physio says to you, right, you're going to ice for 5 minutes of every hour, you can do that, right? It's the same amount of time. It's not as much fun, but it will have an end result, which might be the same time input and effort input to get you back racing again. And then when you do get back out running again, you will have the biggest smile on your face. And that is the other thing. When something that we enjoy doing is taken away from you, when you're able to get back out there and do it for the first time, it is an amazing feeling. And at the end of my career, when I had to have my foot rebuilt again, I can remember the first time, so I'd had 9 months or so, and the first time I went out with my ski poles and I was able to run for 100 metres and then walk the rest of the K and do that about 5 times. And I came back home with the biggest smile on my face. And that is just something that you can't find. You find that one thing that you just really enjoy doing that makes you feel alive, and then you'll fight just to keep it there.
Well, perspective again, isn't it? Well, you've had an absolutely incredible career and you're still enjoying running now. But the last question I have for you is, what is your high five me moment? So that moment that you would have given yourself a huge high five. I don't know how you can pick one from your achievements.
Oh, wow. That's a big one.
You can list more than one.
In the career?
Anything. It can be life as well.
Yeah, because I think in life, I think when you have kids, that's like really, and then when you see them growing up into the strong people that they are, I think then that's obviously a big reflection, particularly when you think back on what your parents did for you, and then you think that's a big reflection on what they're going to do in life. I think in career, obviously the marathon world record was a big one. I think for me personally, when I ran 8:22 for 3K in Monaco, was a massive, big surprise to me, because I actually didn't ever think I could run that fast over 3K, and I'm not sure I saw a clock for much of the way around. I was really just racing, and it was again one of those moments where I'd run my first London Marathon, and then I'd had a really silly injury. I had a really, really bad blister on the bottom of my foot, and so I then just had to rest, and I was lucky that I was able to get into Monaco and race, and it was my one race before the Commonwealth Games, so I just wanted to run quickly, and nothing like the new spikes now, but Nike had actually given me a new pair of spikes the afternoon of the race and done the classic, right, the new spikes, you can't wear them tonight, and I put them on for some strides, and I thought, I'm absolutely wearing these tonight, and I put them on and I ran, and I can remember coming into the finishing straight and seeing the clock said like 8 minutes, low 8 minutes, and I was thinking, that can't be right, and sprinting like mad to cross that line, and still looking in disbelief at the clock. So I think that for me is one of those standout moments. I didn't win anything for it. I think I did set a Commonwealth record that day. It doesn't last any longer, but it was just one of those times where I thought that was really good. I didn't think I could do that.
I love that, because probably not many people know that one, so that's really cool. Just to touch on your high five moment of having your children. Now you have teenage kids. If you could go back in your own career to when you were younger, or if you could give advice to young people out there, is there anything that you would have changed about what you did, or any advice you give to young people getting into the sport?
Oh gosh, I think there's a lot. Actually, there's a funny story about giving birth, if you want to talk about that, and giving the kids, because when they went in, they said that I had to have an epidural, and then they said because I was high risk, because runners' muscles don't relax enough, whatever, so I was in for a long labour, and they said basically you've got to pretend it's a marathon, because you're not going to be able to have any food now or drink until the baby comes out. And I was like, that's not like a marathon. I get given a drink every 5K. That's not going to happen. And they said, well, you've got a flannel. You can wet the flannel and squeeze a few drops of water into your mouth. having a laugh. And so then I'd been sat cross-legged for 14 hours, and they brought in a little breakfast tray. So it gave birth in Monaco's, they're French, and they bring in a little breakfast tray with a croissant, a cup of coffee, and a glass of orange juice from my husband, who's just been sat there doing nothing all night. And so I just looked at him like, really? And he said, yeah, you can have the orange juice, but if you throw up, I will kill you. And I didn't throw up. But that was a transfer from the marathon into giving birth. But what I would give now I think it's really, really tough. And we were talking about it a little bit in the tent earlier as well. I think social media is a big, big change, not just for girls now, but for all the youngsters going through. And I think trying to, again, go back to that perspective. And we didn't have to worry about that so much, because what we were seeing was reality. You couldn't change people's body images and what you looked like. They couldn't make this like almost fantasy life, which is sometimes what people are trying to keep up with. And there wasn't that big comparison going on so much. You could just get out and race the people. So the biggest comparisons growing up within athletics that I had was waiting for Athletics Weekly to come through the letterbox and then sit and reading that, and just by people's names and clubs. That was my only real comparison until national championships came around. And I think now the world has become a lot smaller, and I think making sure that the kids really stay grounded in who they are, and remembering that adolescence is very, very challenging, and everybody goes through it at their own pace, and there will be huge kids at 14, and you might still be that little kid at 14 that's still got a lot of growing to go. People's bodies change, and the one thing that is going to keep you in the sport is loving what you're doing and giving it your best each time that you go to that training session. And that's the one thing that you can control. And that's something that, again, my dad used to say to me, is you control what you can control and you don't worry about the rest, because you can't waste energy, and that is just wasted energy trying to control any of that. You can only control, you do your best every single day. And if you go and you give it an 8 out of 10 in one training session, then that's fine. You just got to get it up to 9, 10 in the next couple.
Wow, well, what a great message to end on. Thank you so much, Paula, for joining us for 5 Miles Easy.
Thank you.